This is AJ Wachtel. Welcome to my podcast, Wachtelligence, where I discuss with my guests the past, present, and future of the local and national music scene with a focus on Boston and New England. Today's episode, Harvey Wharfield, WCGY, WZLX, WCOZ, WAAF DJ says, longevity gives you legitimacy. Is about the legendary life and career of a man whose voice and personality has been heard and enjoyed from Maine to New York and has helped shape and promote the taste of the New England music scene for many, many, many moons. For more than a generation back in the days when airplay was critical to a struggling band's survival, Harvey would be plugging his own personal favorites that he'd seen, heard, and met in clubs all over the place when he wasn't broadcasting. His commitment to local musicians and his own personal involvement in getting their music heard to larger audiences over such a long period of time establishes him as truly genuine, authentic, sincere, honest, and the amount of groups indebted to Wharfield and his laser focus spreading their sound is astronomical. It's with great pleasure that I introduce a radio voice I grew up on. Welcome to Wachtelligence, Harvey.
What? Were you describing Harvey?
Hey, listen, wait a minute. How about you announce Wachtelligence with your more easily recognizable voice?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wachtelligence with AJ Wachtel.
Perfect. It brings me back to many, 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 many times listening to you, and we'll get to that.
But I didn't use that heavy voice all the time, but anyways, good.
Well, listen, I'm going to start this a little differently. Usually, I just start talking. I want everybody to know my introduction was really, really worthwhile and authentic to Harvey Wharfield. Here, just in a minute or two, WDNH in Dover, New Hampshire, you were Bill Wharfield in 1971. WBBX, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Bill Wharfield, 1972. WHEB, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, 1972. WVBF in Framingham, Massachusetts, 1972. WAAF in Worcester, 1975 for your first haul there. WGNG, Providence, Rhode Island, you were Harvey Wallbanger in 1975. WACQ in Boston, WAAF, that was in 75, WAAF in Worcester again, 107.3 FM, 1979 to 1983, where you hosted the show Cocaine Reality Bar and Grill Show, WCOZ Boston, 91.7 FM, 1983 to 1984, WZLX in Boston, 100.7 FM, 1986 to 1990. WCGY in Boston, 94 FM from 91 to 94, where you hosted the Rock Garden Boston Music Showcase Show. And since then, you're a screenplay writer. You have Hey Joe, loosely based on the song's lyrics. You have Varieties, The Truth is Out There Somewhere, an internet talk show streamed daily on Tiger5090.com. You are also an investment banker on WeFunder.com. And before I get you into this, Chris Lannon, an old friend of ours, an old sound man guitarist, I was talking to him about you, and he goes, Harvey and I hooked up on issues like the Federal Reserve scam, sound money legislation efforts, etc. Now, I never even knew that part about you. What Federal Reserve scam is Chris talking about?
Well, probably the income tax. And we won't even get into that. The income tax is totally voluntary, but no one knows that. And they don't know what the actual tax is based on. But let's not get into that.
All right, well, do you have any financial advice do you have for all of our listeners right now?
I have none. I've got so much stuff rolling around in my head. It hurts my head. Anyway. All right.
So am I pretty much up to date?
Yes, you're pretty much up to date.
Oh, we'll get to all the things I'm missing, but okay, let's start in the beginning. You were born Bill Hathaway in Fort Devens, Massachusetts, and grew up in Lexington and graduated from Belmont High School when Beatlemania was in full swing. What
Yeah.
national bands did you listen to?
Back then,
Yeah.
Freddie Boom Boom Cannon. I don't know if you remember Freddie Boom Boom Cannon, Palisades Park, stuff like that. The Beatles, of course. Yeah, the Beatles broke right in the tail end of '63 into '64. But you see, that was also, and it's good the Beatles happened because it took the country's mind off the Kennedy assassination, which happened in November of '63. So anyway, so it was good the Beatles arrived because it took us out of our morose, shall we
Well,
say.
what were your favorite local bands at that time when you were growing up?
Might have been the Ramrods. Let's see, Multi and the Barbarians. You remember them?
Yep.
Okay,
Did
good.
he have one? He was a drummer with one hand.
That's right. Multi was the drummer with one hand, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that, what was the song? Oh, are you a boy or are you a girl? Correct?
Yep.
That's right. It's all coming back to me, AJ. This is scary.
Listen, this is just the beginning. You should strap yourself into your seat.
Mm.
What were your favorite DJs at the time?
Oh, Arnie Woo Woo Ginsburg, of course. Dick Summer late at night. Bruce Bradley, who used to stack beer cans on top of the console, a broadcasting studio, and he very carefully tried to have it so that they wouldn't fall down during one of his breaks, like WBZ, Bruce Bradley, whatever. And then, but one night they all fell down, and it made a racket. And I guess he got a call from the program director. What the hell's going on over there? Right. But anyways, it was great. Oh, Dave Maynard, who used to do sock hops around the Boston area and stuff like that. That's basically it. But Arnie the Woo, probably the most favorite one.
Well, Arnie, I liked Arnie. V66, when he owned that, he talked to me about a weekly gossip column show, but they sold out before it went anywhere.
Oh, so you mean you were almost on TV? Is that what?
Yeah. They were going to have me as a weekly show because I was writing the Beat magazines, in Significa, and I was the man about town. I saw more bands than anybody back in those days.
Yep,
and so they just wanted me on, and we were talking about that, and I would have been on. They would have driven me out once a week to videotape out to Framingham, but then all of a sudden Arnie sold out, made his millions, and said sayonara. Do you have any great Arnie Woo Ginsburg stories?
No, I think I caught up a couple of times trying to win a 45 with a hamburger on it, or I don't know what it was. Or no, you would. You would go to the Adventure Car Hop and you would be delivered your meal, a greasy hamburger on a 45. Now, I defy you to go home and try and play that record on your record player. It's got all this grease on it or whatever, Oh my God, those were the days. Those were interesting radio days,
Well, your first radio show, WDNH in Dover, New Hampshire, you were Bill Wharfield. Right. When did Bill Hathaway become Bill Wharfield, and why?
Well, Bill Hathaway is not my real name. We will not reveal it. But that's not my real name, AJ. That's just another one of, 14 or 15 aliases I've used in my in my lifetime. But anyway, Bill Wharfield, I was like country cousin Bill Wharfield, because DNH was a country station, but it was my first commercial radio gig, which means I was excited to be there, but I hated the music. Give me a break, it was country music. But I did hire a guy, and then after he was there for a while, he went down to a station in Portsmouth, WHEB. HEB, his eternal blessing. That's theoretically what the call stood for. I don't know if it was a religious station, years ago. But anyway, so this guy I hired was down at HEB, and when I bailed out of WDNH because I said I can't take this country no more, I knew somebody down there. I said, hey, any openings? And yeah, there was an opening. So I got a chance to be on actual rock and roll radio, man. It was exciting. It was great, you know? And I got my radio legs back under me, my rock and roll radio legs rather
Yeah.
than country radio legs. See? So that
Well,
was very
you know,
important.
when you were at WGNG in Providence, you were a Harvey Wallbanger in 1975. When did Bill Warfield become Harvey Wallbanger?
Well, I was Harvey Wharfield when I went to the station in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, WGNG. It stood for Gold and Great, but it was a contemporary hit station. But anyway, so the guy goes, Harvey Wharfield. Yeah, that's a great name. Yeah, I know you're famous up in the Boston area. Look, we want you to be Harvey Wharfield, Harvey Wallbanger. I said, oh, you know, there's a drink called a Wallbanger.
Right, right.
Okay. And I said to myself, Harvey Wallbanger. Oh my God, this is embarrassing as hell. Well, I tell you what, it's going to cost you a little bit extra. I said, I'm going to need another $25 a week. And the guy said, done. And so for about 8 months, I was Harvey Wallbanger. I was crazed on that radio station because it was a top 40 station, and we would yell and scream and do all sorts of wacky stuff. Anyway, so it was interesting. I'm so glad that after I was there, I didn't get committed after I then went on to my next radio station. Jeez.
Well, your next radio station was WVBF in 1972 in Framingham. Why'd you come to Massachusetts again?
Because it was a good station. It was a combination of contemporary hit radio, which are top hits, and album cuts. It was a hybrid FM, and it had this very famous jingle. Electronic Mama, Stereo 105, WVBF, Framingham, Boston. Yeah. And it was just too much, and it was great. And that was my favorite program director, Big John Gillis. And anyway, and from there it just started to. Then I was Harvey Wharfield, but Warfield was spelled Warfield. And the program director, now listen, the program director put on my production board. You had to do commercials after you get off the shift. He put on Harvey, and then he put an H after the W. And I said, "Wow, I said, wait a minute, that looks classy. I think I'll keep it, right?" So that's how the H got into Warfield. So anyway, so there you go. But it was a great station, so much fun. Charlie Kendall, who was at BCN and stuff like that, and also has the Metal Shop on satellite radio now or whatever. Charlie Kendall was there. Big John Gillis, Bud Ballou, who used to be on MEX with Arnie LaRue, came over to FM and was cool, smooth, great guy, a legend. And I got to do a crossover with him, like when he was leaving and I was going to come on or something like that. Or it was unbelievable. I mean, this was like me being in the presence of like someone like Howard Stern at the time. Unbelievable. Bud Ballou, who left us too early. He died in his early 30s. Huh?
Well, it's a different era today. I mean, I don't know if that could still be, that group could still be, put together. How is the music scene, just real briefly, this is a big question, but how have you seen the music scene change since then in the past 40, 50 years?
The local or the national?
Both.
Well, the national, of course, is all conglomerates now, which is really kind of too bad. And also, you wouldn't in the days of the 70s, the 60s and 70s and 80s, you don't get bonuses anymore for signing, and you don't get the studio time paid for and stuff. But now locally, it was pretty good, because what did we have in Boston? We had the Rat and the Channel and places like that, so that local bands could really have a venue to play in, right? And they could open for some of the national acts. So that was a real big boon. So that was good. That was a good aspect of the whole thing,
And there's just nowhere to play today.
Yeah, where is there to play? I was trying to think. Well, there's Roadrunner. Where is that? Roadrunner is over in Brighton someplace or something. And then there's the MGM at Fenway Park, but it's not so much for local bands, it's for national bands, and not very many local bands get a chance to open for some of these acts, which is too bad. you know?
Well, part of the difference, in the scene in our era back then and now is I know you left WAAF the first time for money issues, and I know
Mhm.
almost a decade later you left WCOZ, like you mentioned, because suddenly you had to play stuff like Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, and you saw Mandy by Barry Manilow on the station's playlist once, and you knew it was time to go. You
Well,
didn't like the way the business was changing, right?
yeah, and speaking of Mandy, when that song came into the studio on cartridge and was put into the rack to play, I went over and I said, "Oh, what's the new one that just came in?" I said, "Mandy, what the?" And I immediately took it out of the rack, threw it into my briefcase, and it was never played on COZ. That would have been such a tragedy. I mean, it would be blasphemy to, on a former rock and roll station, play Mandy. Come on. So, anyways, it never got played. Yay. But yeah, that was too bad. And then it became the Zoo. COZ became the Zoo. 94.5 COZ, the Zoo. It was like, I don't know, rap and contemporary and crap. It was just junk. Anyway,
So
so
you don't think so? It doesn't seem that things are changing for the better.
no, it doesn't. And I don't mean to laugh. I do not mean to laugh.
All right, Ron Rudy from WCOZ and I were talking. I see you laughing already. We had, and this is what he had to say about Harvey Wharfield.
Yeah.
We had some opulent Christmas parties at WCOZ. After one party, we continued celebrating and ended up on Charles Street in Beacon Hill. I was giving Harvey a ride to his car. He was directing me where we had to go. We parked somewhere on Beacon Hill, which is mostly all one-way streets. And we go to one spot and it wasn't his, and he'd say, "It's over there." And I back up on a one-way street. This literally went on for forever until we eventually found his car. We were both pretty loaded, and by the end, I was getting very frustrated not finding his car for so long. I was also a big supporter of him when he jello wrestled Carla Leonardo. She was the Chicago radio DJ personality at the channel. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh yeah.
Talk to me about that trip with Ron Rudy, and then we'll talk about the wrestling match.
The one with Ron Rudy, I think it was after a Christmas party or something along those lines, and it was to go and visit some listener that had called up, "Hey, Harvey, it's Christmas. Come on over, have a whatever, a Christmas drink or whatever." And it was Beacon Hill. We couldn't find where the hell we were, and I don't even know if we actually got in or actually got to the place we were supposed to be. But the parking thing is true. You're right. We did spend a lot of time trying to figure out what was going on, and then that was it. And then finally, I did get into my car, and then finally did get home, I think. Well, we're still talking, right? So I guess I did, yeah. Anyway.
He says he speaks to you all the time.
So
tell me about your Jello wrestling match with Carla Leonardo, the Chicago radio personality.
We were both appalled when we were approached to say, "Hey, you guys want to wrestle in Jello?" Because it was a big thing back then, wrestling in Jello. But actually, it was normally pretty girls wrestling in Jello for the entertainment value. But no, but they said, "Yeah," and I said, "Why would I want to do that?" I said, "Yeah, that's really." And Carla is looking at me going, "Yeah, Harvey, yeah, let's try and not sell this thing, But I said, "Okay, the only way I would do that would be for a charity." So they came up with a charity, and we wrestled in Jello on a Saturday afternoon. And let me tell you, that Jello was about 34 degrees. And when we got out of that pit, we just had Jello all over us. We were freezing. Now, I think I pinned Carla once. She pinned me once. but I got double disqualified for something. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but there's a video on YouTube. So go and search it.
Yeah, I heard there was a video on
Yep.
YouTube. I will check that out.
Yep,
All right.
yep.
Your next stop in 1986 was WCLX, and this is about the time when we met. You and I met.
Mhm.
First, I want to give you another quote from Lisa Garvey, another famous DJ,
Yep, yep.
WFNX, WMVY. Now she has a Sunday morning online The A Train show.
Yeah,
And she says, although I've met Harvey, we've never worked together. He is a very funny guy, though. And I wanted to bring that in, because when you and I met, there's a situation that happened. I'm going to bring it up.
Oh, jeez.
It's the upstairs Bunratty smoking chillums event that occurred between you and I.
Mhm.
After a gig at Bunratty's, I said, Harvey, let's go upstairs and smoke some weed. And I took you upstairs. We smoked a few chillums. And you said, that's enough for me. And I said, oh, come on, just one more, Harvey. And we should, and we smoked one more. You said, okay, one more. And you had to walk out the door and down steps to the where the stage was at Bunratty's.
Yeah,
So we smoked the chillum. You turn around for the exit, and you walk right into the closed door.
I did, because I thought that was the exit. Did I actually open it and try and get in there? I can't remember it. Or
no, it was on the way out. We were smoking weed. You turned around and you just walked into the door. I thought that was very funny too, and that's why I mentioned that you're a very funny guy. And 40 years later, I don't let you forget that day. It still cracks me up. How do you remember that?
Well, very hazily. It was a little smoky, but I do remember doing something on the way out. I said, "Yeah, AJ, I got to get downstairs." And yeah, you're right. I did do that. It's not a vivid image in my mind, but kind of a smoky image.
Would it be fair to say, if I ever quoted that the Supreme Allied Commander was a klutz?
When it was what?
Was a klutz.
Okay, I'll give you that. You could say that because you did witness it, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I was there.
Apparently, I should not deny that I was a klutz on that one occasion, perhaps.
What show were you the Supreme Allied Commander on?
That was it. That was on AAF, WAAF. And
right.
The actual title is Supreme Allied Commander-in-Chief of the Rock and Roll Air Force. That was the full title. So
I apologize. It's been 40 years.
That's okay. Not many know the full title. And the full title was made up by me, but it was based on Eisenhower being the Supreme Allied Commander-in-Chief of the European forces and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, and plus, I was in the actual Air Force. So there you go. So it could have happened.
Well, when you were in the Air Force, did you spend most of your time in the brig?
No, not all of the time. A couple times. I was not such a good soldier, but I got through it all. It was 3 years, 7 months, 1 day, 15 hours, and 20 minutes. But I wasn't counting. Right?
At least they didn't send you to Vietnam.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, you're right. I was very lucky in that aspect. Yes.
All right. So why did you leave WZLX?
ZLX. Oh, now that's an interesting question. I didn't leave willingly. They just didn't want to renew my contract. And the guy who took over for me, the guy who took my shift, used to work at AAF. And a lot of AAF people came into Boston to do stuff, right? And the guy who took over for me, Chuck Nowlin, Nowlin, has now been at ZLX since 1991, which is 33 years. I can't believe that I missed out on a gig that long. But no, I don't get along with management as well as I should. And I think that may have had something to do with it. And But anyway, it shouldn't have happened, AJ. I should have had better. My entertainment lawyer perhaps should have been a little bit better and should have fought a little bit more for me. But hey, I ended up at CGY, and then after CGY, that was basically it. I mean,
well, after when you went to CGY, you hosted the Boston Music Showcase show. I mean, that was very that was the rock garden at the time. But all right, I want to give you you played a lot of local bands when you were at CGY.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Shaler from Angry Young Bees and Jamie Shaler on Vacation and I were talking, and he goes, is it a funny? I asked him to give me a funny story about you because I know that you guys were friends and he played you.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, "Is it a funny story that he was kind enough to play me on the radio? Love you, Mr. Wharfield."
That's nice.
He's still playing too. WCGY, and we have to get to this, was owned by legendary longtime Red Sox announcer Kurt Gowdy, who was a real character. You introduced me to him and his daughter, Cheryl Ann Gowdy. Right. I remember once my editor from the Beat magazine and me showed up at the station to get your ad copy for the magazine, and you introduced us, and you're smiling. I'm going to ask you, give me 2 quick Kurt Gowdy stories that you think people will just smirk at.
Well, Kurt Gowdy had a conference room and an office off the conference room, and he had a special bathroom there that only Kurt Gowdy could use. But apparently, Kurt said, "Hey, Harvey, you can use it anytime." Yeah, he said, "What?" He said, "My God, this is like Kurt Gowdy, the legendary dude, right?" But and I think I only used it once or twice. I didn't want to overuse it, but can you imagine the guy says, "Yeah, Harvey, yeah, you can take a leak in there anytime you want." Oh my God!
I think it's incredible that you used it once and didn't steal the soap.
Let me. Do you know what the call letters WCGY stood for?
Kurt Gowdy, what?
Youth. Kurt Gowdy Youth. So the CGY FM was Kurt Gowdy Youth. That was the station for the young kids, right? And then the other station they had was CCM, which was 800 AM. So the CCM, I guess it had something to do with that. But anyway, yeah, Kurt Gowdy Youth. But by the time I got there, the rock garden was in the past. And then we were doing pretty much straight ahead rock and roll kind of stuff. It was great. Contemporary rock and roll and, some album cuts and things like that. But yeah, the Boston Music Showcase on CGY was a joy to do. Got to meet a lot of bands, got to help a lot of bands. And it was on Sunday nights. It was like from 6 to 10 Sunday nights, 4 hours of local music.
If I remember right, his daughter was universally hated at WCGY.
Well, not by me, but go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Well, was that wrong? I mean, I used to hear a lot of shit that she was just an asshole.
No, here's the thing. She was the boss's daughter, and she used that. That's all, So, and that's why some people didn't like her because, oh, Cheryl, whatever, But I never had any problems with her, so, and which is amazing for me, So that's
right. You're about as anti-authority as anyone I know.
Correct, but apparently I had matured in my radio career by the time I got to CGY. Not in time for ZLX, but in time for CGY. And then CGY got sold, and yet another radio station went away from me.
Well, when you were working there, the WCGY's listeners, they wanted an alternative to WBCN, WBOS, AAF, and ZLX. And, you played familiar classic rock. And like you said, you played hours and hours of local rock and regular rock. I remember once when you were at WCGY and I was doing all my interviews. It was 1994. and I was doing my interviews with all the college and commercial radio stations for the new release Boston Gets Stoned. All local bands doing Rolling
Yep.
Stones
Yep.
music,
Great.
and produced by Jimmy Miller, the legendary producer. So I'm sitting in your show with Tina, Harrison's mother, and all of a sudden I announced on your show that Tina was pregnant and we were having a boy. Do you remember that?
I do, and I think I was probably gobsmacked. I had no idea what to say. It worked out well. Hi, Harrison. How you doing, buddy?
And didn't I write an insider a story for you about the in the Beat magazine?
Yes. Oh, yeah. You did a profile of me in the Beat. Yeah. And that wasn't that when I was on ZLX. I can't remember.
I think so. It was a long time ago.
It was when I was ZLX, and I looked like I was a corporate banker at that point.
I remember.
Yeah, and people said, "That's Harvey Wharfield, huh?"
You had glasses on too.
He was a little wilder looking than that, right? But, hey, what can I say?
And when I wrote about you in Insignificant, my gossip column, didn't you always insist on me adding 3 exclamation marks, specifically 3 exclamation marks, to the end of your name when I wrote about you?
Well, I did suggest that you might want to do that because I after I became Harvey Wharfield with the H, I would spell it. People want an autograph. I go, keep rocking, Harvey Wharfield! Exclamation point, 1 exclamation point, right? And then I said, okay, let's see. I'm going to be written up in a magazine. Let's go for 3. Put 3. So AJ put 3 exclamation points there, but I always signed it with 1 exclamation point.
Yes, but I always put 3 when I put in press because you asked me to.
And I didn't mind that. That was fine. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, not a problem. Another funny story I have about you is that, part of my job at the Beat magazine was to write the entertainment gossip column Insignificant. And every night, 7 nights a week, 365 days a year, nights a year, I go out in my gray Nova with New Jersey license plate from club to club to pick up new releases, pick up info for my weekly gossip column, and schmooze with everybody on the scene. And I saw, sometimes I'd be at 3, I'd always be back at Bun Rallies for last call,
right.
But most of the time I'd have my car radio on to classic rock or an oldie station, mostly your show. And I'd be racing with my windows open down Mass Ave or somewhere out in the suburbs, screaming along with Ram-a-lam-a-lam-a-lam-a-lam-a ding dong at the top of my lungs while leaving a blues show or heading to a punk show. And, and people in my car would say, "Is this what you listen to?" So, they're saying, "Is that what Harvey Wharfield looks like?" They were saying, "Is that what he sounds like?"
What can I say?
All right, listen, Boston is a college town. Every year, teenage musicians from all over the world come to study here and bring their music with them. How are the college and commercial radio stations similar and different?
They're similar and different in that they both involve music, but the way that the music is promoted or encouraged, very, very different. Because, commercial radio doesn't, they want the national stuff, right? And the college stations are great as far as, getting some of that music out there. But it's kind of a rat race if you're doing. I mean, I would hate to be a local band trying to make it on a club scene. Because AJ, is there a club scene still in Boston the way we remember it? No, it's unfortunate. But I guess there are some places you can actually try and ply your craft.
Yeah, but it's also an economic thing. This is a college town. The economy hasn't been good for a long time. And, one of the first things to go is disposable income from parents to their college students. They don't have $50 to bring their dates into a club to see a band anymore.
Yeah. Well, hey, what can you do? And so that's why the internet is as important in the proliferation of music as ever, I think.
Well, it's cheaper to buy a case of beer and stay home and watch music on the internet.
That is correct. And then there's the argument that, oh, we're not paying for the music, and yeah, but hey, that's just obviously the way it's evolved. But yeah, but I mean, the music scene is still fairly vibrant as far as people coming up to replace those that are going away, you know. But it is a lot tougher these days in the 21st century to do it. So,
Well, in a time like this, radio doesn't get much of an increase in people who
yeah,
tune into them.
I know, I know. Well, because
Why?
as many people commuting, maybe. I mean, I very seldom listen to radio these days. What I mostly listen to are tracks on YouTube and places like that. Um, it is kind of too bad, but hey, it is what it is. You got to say that.
Well, another thing that just came to me is that, how has the changing relationships between different sounds and different scenes, like the changing punk scene, the changing blues scene, changing rock, classic hits, jazz, classical scenes, how has that changed the formats of college and commercial radio much over the years?
I don't know if it's had that much of an influence, but I mean, on college stations, there are certain shows that are devoted to certain genres of music, which is good, right? On the commercial stations, remember, they're after the buck. So they've got to do stuff that's going to appeal to a mass audience that they can advertise to. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, wouldn't you say?
How
Yes.
come you never did a college radio show?
I I did many years ago. That was when I first got on radio. I mean, my first college station was WOCB, pronounced WOCB, Oberlin College, Ohio. And I had no idea what I was doing, and all I played was dinner music. But I kind of learned how to do the thing of queuing up a record, opening up the mic. First time I opened up the mic, people would say, "Now be careful, Bill." And I was Bill. I was before Bill Warfield and before Harvey Wharfield. Be careful when you open that mic to say something. You might experience Mike Fright. I said, Mike Fright? What the heck is that? So I opened up the thing to say this is, and I knew what I was going to say. I was going to say WO. This is WOBC. You're listening to Evening Classics, whatever, Anyway, so I opened up the mic and I'm staring at the mic, and I had to close the mic and go, uh-oh, that's Mike Fright. Imagine my first break. And it happens because, it's real. Once there's a microphone in front of your face, it's real. Right? So, yeah, it was a little scary. But hey, I made it through it. But yeah, WOBC.
Over the years at all your stations, tell me some of the famous people you've met.
Oh, he's fallen out of style now because he's kind of an a-hole. Ted Nugent. When I was at the Centrum for a Ted Nugent show, he signed my T-shirt on the air when I was interviewing him behind the stage before he went out. And I said, "Oh, wow, that's pretty cool." Other people who I've met, geez, I wish I could just reel them off. I can't. I've met a lot of really cool people. I met Tony Bennett's son, who was in a band called Neon. This is before he was actively serving as Tony Bennett's manager. And it was a pretty good tune. The band Neon sounded pretty good. Never, unfortunately, went anywhere. But he then took over the management of his dad. And that's when his dad's resurgence happened. I interviewed, because of that, Tony Bennett when I was on ZLX. And where was it? We were someplace. I don't think it was a Disney World, Disneyland. We went out to Disneyland one time for ZLX. No, but I got a chance to actually talk to this legend, Tony Bennett. And even though I'm a rock and roller, and even though I had long hair, and he was a great guy. He was awesome. Very nice, very nice.
So you had a good impression of him. Did you ever have a bad impression of somebody famous you met?
I'm sure I did. But mercifully, I have forgotten who that might be. And after this interview, I'll say, "Oh, geez, I should have said blah blah blah." Sorry, I can't come up with one right up the
Well,
top.
then, how about you just tell me who you'd like to meet today and talk about music?
Oh, well, my favorite band of all time was the LA band called Spirit, and they had a song called I Got a Line on You" back in 67, 68 or something like that. That was Randy California.
Randy, California.
Randy California died in 1997. He and his son were swimming off an island in Hawaii. Undertow got his son. Randy dove in, got his son out of the undertow, and Randy's body was never found. Randy was a great guy. He was very talented, a super guitarist, and does a pretty damn good version, did very good versions of Hey Joe, speaking of that. So yeah. Randy California, great guy. And I met his stepdad, Ed Cassidy. So the drummer in the band Spirit was Randy California's stepfather. I mean, his dad was in his 40s, and then we brought him to Boston when when Ed Cassidy was celebrating his 70th birthday. I think it was Bill's Bar or someplace like that. It was unbelievable. And Randy played too. But yeah, Randy died in 1997. But he's probably my favorite musician of all time. Favorite guitarist, favorite band, bar none. Favorite album, The Family That Plays Together. It's the one with the Motel $6 on the cover, and it shows the band coming down the stairs, the outside stairs. Great album. If you go and find it on YouTube, listen to it. It's awesome.
Speaking of which, what's a good web address for people to check up on what's going on with Harvey Wharfield?
Well, there's no Harvey Wharfield thing, per se. But I remember I do have the Twitter feed where I promote the Hey Joe script, right? So for those of you who don't know, I and a screenwriter out in LA wrote a screenplay loosely based on the lyrics of Hey Joe. We tell a backstory of how it came about and what happened to the guy who was blamed for the death of the girlfriend that Joe, either on purpose or accidentally, shot. So anyway, oh, and that would be the Twitter feed. So if you got a Twitter account, go to whatever it is, at the @ sign or the slash or whatever. It's Harvey W26, all one word. Harvey, HARVEY W26. You can hear hundreds of versions of Hey Joe from all over the world. Anyway, as I try to promote the damn movie to get somebody interested in it and get it made. Gosh darn it. Anyway.
What local bands you thought would have made it nationally but didn't?
Oh, yeah. Kid Morocco was one, which was back in the late 70s. Unfortunately, the band leader died a couple of years into the band.
If they made a movie of your life, what do you think the title should be, and who do you think should play your part?
I know. Maybe it would be what, Warfield with an H, right, for the title, and then to play me. Gosh, wow. Maybe Michael Pitt. Do you know who Michael Pitt is?
No.
Yeah, Michael Pitt was in the thing called Boardwalk. Was it a Netflix thing called Boardwalk? I think it was called Empire, Boardwalk Empire, or something like that. Anyway, Michael Pitt. He's kind of a wild child. No one really wants to work with him, but I thought he might do well as playing Joe in the playing Bill, the Bill part, right? Billy Roberts, who wrote Hey Joe, to play the Bill part, because he could age from, like, say 23 up to about 65 or 70. So anyway, But yeah, Michael Pitt. Look him up, see what he's done. But I think it was called Boardwalk Empire. It was a great Netflix series.
Harvey, what is your most prized rock and roll memorabilia?
My Kid Morocco poster that's on my wall. It was for a show that I emceed with them. Remember, I said Kid Morocco was a local band that I wanted.
Yeah.
I thought should go far. They sounded kind of like the Cars, but they had a better edge to them. Kid Morocco. Yeah, that's my favorite rock and roll memorabilia. I also have a Link Ray poster from when they were out in Worcester at the Sir Morgan's Cove. I got to see Link Ray, the guy who did Rumble, the song that was banned on the radio because they thought it would start gang wars. The song Rumble, 1957. I saw him live. Link Ray, a legend, unbelievable legend. Didn't even get a chance to shake his hand because, the guy he was just a giant.
I met Link Ray when Tommy Hambridge was playing drums for him. Tommy's now playing for Buddy Guy and won a lot of Grammys.
Yeah.
But TH was going to Berkeley, and Link Ray came to town and played Jonathan Swiss in Harvard Square.
Yeah.
So after the show, I went backstage, and TH introduced me to Link, and Link was short, and I remember he had a pompadour a foot tall. His hair was up.
And this was probably what, in the 80s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I saw him in 1999, okay? And he had grown his hair, and it was down his back. It was a long ponytail. The guy is just phenomenal.
Well, I shook his hand, and he had sunglasses on, and he was a short guy with a pompadour that was up to my eyes.
Yep, absolutely. And wearing leather, most likely, right?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody wore leather in those days to see Link Ray.
Yeah.
He was fabulous, though. But I was equally as glad shaking his hand and meeting him as you were. Here was Link Ray, and I was standing in his presence.
I know. It's amazing. 57. And I was just a little teen, but I wasn't even a teen. I was like 12 and a half or 13 or something like that. And here's another story. I got kicked out of science class. Jerry Lee Lewis was starting his hits, right? And one of them was called Great Balls of Fire. So I'm in the science class, and this goofy science teacher is showing us how metal can burn. And what he had is some iron filings, and took them over the Bunsen burner, and it would go, whoosh, and from the back of the room, I go, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. And it was Gilpatrick, principal's office. Oh, you heard my last name, didn't you? Right? There you go. Because my real last name is Gilpatrick. Gilpatric.
No, I knew that. I knew that.
Because, that's right. You did. That's right.
Because Trisha's last name is Gilpatrick.
That's right. Yeah.
Trisha's Harvey's ex-wife and the mother of his kid.
That's right. Yeah. My kid who helped me put together my grandfather's lost memoir, a memoir that was lost for 41 years after he wrote it, discovered at the bottom of a box by my cousin in Texas. He scanned handwritten pages, typewritten pages of this memoir. I then had to transcribe the handwritten pages, and the typewritten ones I had to transcribe also, but they were faded and all this kind of stuff. So after 7 years, we now have a 250-page memoir of a guy who lived from 1882 to 1981. The guy lived to 99. And he was a great guy. And
if he lived another couple of years, he would have probably been able to guzzle me.
That's correct. You're absolutely correct.
I just thought of another story about you and me. You were broadcasting from the Prudential building up on there. What station was that?
Not the ZLX. That was the Hancock building.
Right, the Hancock. Okay, you were up in the Hancock building, and the Cowsills came to town, and you had the Cowsills on because they were playing some show, And I showed up. It was all the Cowsills and me and you in front of the microphone, and you were interviewing them, and I was just stoned and quiet, just being part of everything. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, Susan goes, "And AJ is going to be there too." And then you and her start talking about me, and I started laughing.
That
Do you remember that at all?
a little bit, and that was early on in the ZLX format when it was called Classic Hits, not so much classic rock. They were classic top 40 hits, and I guess we must have played some Cowsills like The Park and the Rain and other things, and Indian Lake and stuff like that, maybe. But wow, I do remember interviewing John Phillips. Can you imagine that? John Phillips from the Mamas and Papas.
Mamas, yeah.
Wow. Now, there was a character. I mean, not a rambunctious character. There was a certified icon, but with a lot of baggage. But because he had a book out called Papa John. I think it was his memoirs called Papa John. But I do remember something about the Cowsills being up there, and you were up there because you're such good buds with the whole family, right?
Right.
Yeah.
At the time, yeah, I was just there.
Yeah.
I mean, they said we had to go, and I said, "Oh yeah, well, I know Harvey. I'll go with you."
Yeah, let's go up. Yeah, yeah. I hope. Did the interview go well?
Yeah, until I asked everybody if anybody had a match to light my chillum.
I don't remember that part.
No, I didn't ask that. Harvey, do you still have passion for music?
Oh yeah. I with this Hey Joe thing, I really appreciated all sorts of genres because in the Hey Joe thing, it covers polkas, a polka version of Hey Joe, a symphony version of Hey Joe, a Zydeco version of Hey Joe. There are so many bands from all over the world that are doing these songs, and every week I probably find 2 or 3 new versions of Hey Joe, either from the past that I didn't know about or currently. So I mean, even in the 21st century, Hey Joe is just being covered all of because it's the ultimate jam tune. It's the ultimate rock jam tune. Because remember, Jimmy made it famous. Billy Roberts wrote it, and Billy Roberts even changed the lyrics. The lyrics used to go, "Hey Joe, where are you going with that money in your hand?" Then in 65, 66, it got to be, "Hey Joe, where are you going with that gun in your hand?" Because that is a better way to start off a controversial song than "money in your hand." What the heck, Because I mean, gun in your hand, people go, "Oh, gun, what?" So,
What do you think about the fact that my old dear friend Roy Buchanan?
Oh, I play his versions all the time. Live.
He told me that, and I believed him, that Jimi Hendrix got his version of Hey Joe from Roy's version.
He may have, because Roy's version, I have 4 or 5 versions of Roy on my site there that I play, because I rotate. I every day I post 3 or 4 versions of Hey Joe, along with a little thing that says, "Hey, listen, music movies make money. Want to get me Hollywood contacts? Email me. I'll send them the script," right? Because hey, I mean, it's dog eat dog out in L.A. to try and get a movie made without say an agent. And the guy who co-wrote the thing with me used to have Gersh agency out there on the West Coast. There, Gersh is in New York and L.A. Used to have Gersh, but he was no longer represented by him. So I mean, we're just guerrilla marketing Hey Joe. So but that's what the Twitter feed is. But if you go on the Twitter feed, my God, I probably have 300 that rotate, and then each week I add 2 or 3 more into the 300.
Last question I ask all my guests on Wachtelligence, my podcast. What was the first concert you ever attended, Harvey?
You're going to be amazed. It was at, like, say, the Hancock building had a place where they would have concerts and stuff. Concert hall, Hancock Concert Hall, or something like that. It was the Kingston Trio. Can you imagine? It had to be like 61, 62, maybe even 1960. I'm not sure. But the Kingston Trio, it was the big folk thing, at that time, and everybody was into folk music. So there you go.
All right, Harvey, thank you so much for spending the time talking to me. It was such a blast talking to you and seeing what you're up to and hearing what you're up to. You're a great guy, Harvey, and I'm just so glad that you took the time and you told all these stories about your legendary career in life.
My pleasure, sir. Anytime. I guess that would be the way to end it, right? No, AJ, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Wachtelligence. You can connect with me on Facebook at Wachtelligence. Thanks to my producers, my son Harrison and David Schwartz, and Harvey Brooks for my theme song. Don't forget to subscribe.
I don't care what you think of me. Don't need no jailer to set me free. Don't want strangers filling up my cup. Don't need no advisor to show me down from up.